What's up, and welcome to All Things Power. We're going to talk about some drugs. So this is a alleged steroid cycle from the 1990s, allegedly of Nasser. Now, the reason why we think it's Nasser, everyone came to that conclusion, or probably, he was one of the most open about his steroid use, and two, because this was for a 270 to 280 pound bodybuilder. Not a lot of those in the 90s, so Nasser fits kind of nicely. All this is kind of standard and also kind of weird and probably a little bit antiquated, and some of it might even been a little bit ahead of his time. So we're going to start with the injectables, which would be here in the green. Starts out with 400 milligrams of test and tapers off, takes 3 weeks off. Let to kind of clear his system, and then he switches over to suspension and runs that for the last 6 weeks. The theory there is that slower acting esters aromatize at a higher rate than faster acting, so the suspension should aromatize at the very least. So that's his theory there. Trenbolone, he only ran it for 5 weeks. These came in 76 milligram ampules. So this would be 2 pins a week and then 3 pins a week for the last 2 weeks. And then he stops running it. Which that would be the weirdest thing, I think, in this entire cycle, is that he only runs a tren for 5 weeks in the center. Kind of, it looks like as a bridge almost. And then he runs DECA and then switches over to nandrolone phenylpropanate. My theory of why he uses nandrolone instead of trenbolone is because at 270 pounds with a bunch of fat burners, he doesn't need to worry about fat burning as much as what tren would. He needs to be worried more about being full. And I think nandrolone would be possibly slightly better at that than trenbolone. Although trenbolone gives you that hard, grainy look better than anything else. So, I don't know. There's some give and take there. Obviously, he knows what he's doing, and he'll be using the Winstrol, which will also help give him that hard, grainy look. So, he's injecting. He starts out with Primo, runs that for the first 6 weeks, takes a week off. Sorry, the first 7 weeks. And then the last 6 weeks, he switched over to Winstrol. Basically, Winstrol's, I mean, they're both DHTs. Winstrol will be considerably stronger on a milligram per milligram basis. Also, Masterone runs this in the center for 7 weeks. A lot of people like this towards the end of their cycle to help them bring out a little bit of that graininess. It's kind of a weaker steroid, but it's tolerated really well. Once again, all of these are DHTs. Then we get into the orals. Kickstarts it with 25 milligrams of D-ball. First 5 weeks, kind of standardish. 3-week break, and then he goes to 25 milligrams of Anavar a day. Now this is where I want to talk about the dosages. Now, the other weird thing about this is the dosages. I think they're low. Everyone kind of came to the same conclusion that they are incredibly low. This is probably for 2 reasons. One, medical grade. He'd walk into a pharmacy and buy medical grade steroids. 2, these were probably fudged and made considerably lower for liability reasons. So then here we have the Anavar, only 25 milligrams a day, which, unless you're a woman, that's an incredibly low dose. I would assume most people would, your average male would probably like somewhere closer to 60 to 70 milligrams a day. And then Proviron, another DHT, so real heavy on the DHTs, and 100 milligrams every day. This is really good for kind of lowering your SHBG. It doesn't do a heck of a lot else, but it would find itself in a place at that point in the cycle just to kind of help everything else work a little bit better. It also has some kind of supposedly estrogen blocking capabilities. I don't fully subscribe to the idea that Masterone or Proviron or DHTs block estrogen from working. Just from my personal experience, that doesn't seem to be how it works for me. Of course, everyone's different, and I'm not a scientist, nor am I a endocrinologist. Now we get into the fat burners. HGH isn't so much a fat burner, but it is what it was probably used for in this situation. He started at 3 IUs 3 times a week, and then he bumped it up to 3 IUs every day, then 4 IUs every day, and then 5 IUs every day, and then stopped a week out. Pretty standard stuff there as far as stopping it a week out. T3. Once again, this is a pretty standard dose of T3. Stops it a week out. I assume that's to let him get full and kind of volumize. T3, from what I've read, is really good at deflating you like a sad balloon, because, I mean, it's sucking you dry of all of your fat and whatever energy, right? And then clenbuterol and ephedrine. Now, he'd alternate the days, so 30 micrograms of clenbuterol, 100 milligrams of ephedrine, alternating days. This is kind of either ahead of his time, or maybe this is still practiced, I don't know. I generally believe that the most popular way to take clenbuterol right now, or the most efficient way, is to do 3 to 4 day bursts. So something like a Monday through Wednesday, and then 4 days off, and then you wouldn't take it Thursday through Sunday. Or you could take it Monday through Thursday, and then you take Thursday through, Friday through Sunday off, whatever. Let your receptors kind of cleanse themselves. Clenbuterol, your body adapts to clenbuterol quite quickly. And then so he would stagger that with ephedrine, and that would help him keep his receptors clean while still burning fat at a pretty efficient rate. Alright, so now we get into the AIs. Now these are all antiquated, although from what I've read they're pretty cool, and they would still have a place in modern day bodybuilding cycles if we didn't have other options. Even with the other options that we have, these ones would still do some kind of cool things. Testolactone, aromatase inhibitor, and a natural booster. You'll notice he doesn't start the AIs until 4 weeks out. And this kind of makes sense. This is about, this little middle area is about when all the aromatizing drugs would really start to be picking up and become a problem after 14, the first 6 weeks, the first 8 weeks or whatever. But he wouldn't really need them because he just stopped his testosterone, which he might have an issue there with, I don't know. Because when your testosterone drops, that's kind of when it becomes a problem. But he's also on so many fat burners and other crap like that, it's not going to be as big of a deal. Then we go to aminoglutamide, if that's how you pronounce it. This is a aromatase inhibitor and a cortisol blocker. Now the typical dose is 250 milligrams. From what I read, if you're taking 750 milligrams a day, that is going to be brutal. I'm talking lethargy, a lot of other crap that's just not going to make you feel good. He was taking 750 milligrams a day. Now, part of that, he is 280 pounds, which is bigger than the average person, so he could probably handle a larger dose. But at the same time, this is crunch time. It's time to get dry as fuck. And then we go with talbutamide. Now, this is an insulin secretor. Don't know anything about this other than that it secretes insulin. Now, I assume that in the off-season, these guys were using insulin. This is about the time when people started using insulin to get huger, rather. There was a 20 to 30 pound spike in contest weights during these 90s. Now everyone's absolutely huge and they're doing it a lot faster and younger. I think insulin use is a large reason for that. However, I doubt back then they would have been using insulin for contest prep because they know that it makes you fat. Or they thought that. It does, technically. I mean, it's basically what it does. Among other things. It does a lot of things, but it would make you fat, and I personally, in today's, once again, not a contest prep guru, I don't know, but I don't think that insulin would be a smart thing to use late into your prep. Obviously, there's special circumstances, etc. Big Ramy comes to mind as someone who probably uses insulin too long into his prep. He comes in big, he has days where he looks great, and then he gets on stage and he looks watery because he's carving up and probably using a crap ton of insulin. We'll see how he comes in next year, but I bet you he fixes that. So anyways, instead of using actual insulin, they would use talbutamide, which is an insulin secretor, which would help their muscles stay full, help them stay recovered, and help them maintain muscle size coming into crunch time. Next, we get into the last one, ethylene, which is, it's literally a steroid. It's just not a steroid like you're traditionally thinking. It doesn't really do a lot other than piss off your muscle. Basically, you inject it into your muscle, it irritates your muscle, and then your muscle inflames and makes it bigger. This was the first version of synthol. Maybe not the first version of synthol, but this is one of the first versions of synthol, which has since been replaced by synthol, and this is a perfect example of it just not being as good as synthol, like fixing what wasn't broken. And the cool thing about this is it inflamed the muscle, but you did not lose definition, and you did not lose vascularity and stuff like that. And that's incredibly important when you're trying to make your muscle bigger. Synthol, although I don't know a heck of a lot about it, will mask the size of your muscle and stuff like that when you do this. Anyways, so there's the whole cycle. Pretty interesting. Nothing really out of the normal to modern day stuff except for the nandrolone instead of trenbolone, which nowadays people would just run trenbolone for the full 14 weeks at considerably higher doses than 228. And also, yeah, so the dosages and the trenbolone is basically the only two things that are really that different from what I can tell. I know that bodybuilders like to be extremely guarded with their steroid cycles because, oh, that's not what bodybuilding is. Yes, it is. Bodybuilding is exactly steroids. Anyway, that's a whole other video that I will get into. There's nothing more annoying to me than a bodybuilder who hides their steroid stack because they don't think that steroids are a big part of bodybuilding. Steroids are the only part of bodybuilding. And once again, whole other video. Anyways, if you like the video, share the video, tell all your friends about the channel and the video, and until next time, peace.